Since the beginning of human memory, people have looked at the world and asked a question that refuses to die. Why do kind people suffer so deeply? Why does the honest heart break more often? Why does the compassionate soul feel heavier pain? And why do those who try to live rightly seem to carry a greater burden than those who do not care at all? This question is not modern, it is ancient. It haunted philosophers, monks, warriors, and poets thousands of years ago, and one ancient rule quietly emerged across civilizations to explain it. This rule does not promise comfort and it does not flatter human hopes. Instead, it reveals something unsettling yet profoundly true about life itself. The rule can be expressed simply. The more aware a person becomes, the more deeply they suffer. Awareness is the price of goodness. This idea appears again and again in ancient wisdom, from Eastern philosophies to Greek thought, from religious texts to Stoic teachings. The ancients observed that goodness is not merely moral behavior. It is heightened sensitivity to reality. To be good is to see more, feel more, and care more. And when you see more of the world as it truly is, suffering inevitably follows. In ancient India, sages spoke of consciousness as both a gift and a curse. They noticed that ignorance protected people in a strange way. Those who were unaware of injustice, impermanence, and death could move through life lightly. But those who awakened to truth could no longer look away. They saw suffering everywhere, not only their own, but in others as well. Compassion expanded their hearts, and with that expansion came pain. The Buddha himself stated that life contains suffering, not because life is cruel, but because attachment and awareness are inseparable from being human. The deeper your awareness, the more vividly you experience loss, injustice, and impermanence. Ancient Greek philosophers noticed the same pattern. Aristotle observed that virtuous people are more troubled by moral conflict than corrupt ones. A dishonest person sleeps easily after cheating, while an honest person loses sleep over a small wrongdoing. Socrates believed that an examined life was the highest form of life, yet his examination brought him ridicule, isolation, and eventually death. He could have lived comfortably by remaining silent, but truth-seeking made that impossible. Goodness forced him into suffering because truth demanded a cost. The Stoics, often misunderstood as emotionless, understood this rule deeply. They did not deny suffering, they expected it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a good person does not suffer because life is unfair, but because they choose to live according to virtue in an indifferent world. The universe, he believed, does not reward goodness with comfort. It tests. The Stoic ideal was not to escape suffering, but to endure it without becoming bitter. They knew that indifference to morality protects the soul from pain, while commitment to virtue exposes it. This ancient rule also appears in religious traditions. In Christianity, the most morally pure figure suffers the most. Jesus heals, forgives, and loves, yet he is betrayed, tortured, and crucified. The story is not accidental. It conveys a brutal truth. Moral goodness does not shield you from suffering, it makes you a target for it. A good person disrupts injustice simply by existing. Their presence exposes corruption, and corruption responds with violence. In Islamic tradition, prophets are described as those who face the greatest trials. The closer a person was to truth, the heavier their test. Suffering was not seen as punishment, but as refinement. Gold must pass through fire to be purified. The greater the potential of the soul, the more intense the fire. Ancient Chinese philosophy echoed this idea as well. Confucius believed that a noble person feels shame more deeply than an immoral one. Shame, guilt, and moral discomfort were signs of an awakened conscience. A person without virtue felt no internal conflict and therefore appeared happier on the surface. But Confucius warned that such happiness was shallow and temporary. True humanity, he argued, comes with emotional weight. This ancient rule explains why good people often feel exhausted by the world. They notice things others ignore. They feel pain that others suppress. They care when others choose convenience. Their suffering is not weakness. It is evidence of depth. To be good is to live without emotional armor. It is to remain open in a world that constantly wounds openness. Modern psychology unknowingly confirms this ancient insight. Studies show that highly empathetic individuals experience higher levels of emotional distress. People with strong moral values are more prone to anxiety when those values are violated. Those with deep compassion often carry emotional burdens that others avoid. The ancient rule persists because it describes something real about the human nervous system and conscience. But there is a darker side to this rule that ancient thinkers also understood. When good people suffer repeatedly, they face a dangerous choice. They can either harden their hearts or accept suffering as part of their path. Many do not survive this choice intact. Some become bitter. Others withdraw from the world. A few transform suffering into wisdom. This is why ancient teachings did not merely explain suffering. They taught how to carry it. The ancient rule never said that suffering makes someone good. It said that goodness makes someone vulnerable to suffering. This distinction matters. Suffering alone can corrupt or destroy, but suffering combined with meaning can deepen character. Viktor Frankl, echoing ancient wisdom in modern language, observed that people can endure almost any pain if they find meaning within it. The ancients knew this intuitively. Good people suffer more because they refuse to numb themselves. They refuse to become indifferent. They refuse to trade integrity for comfort. Indifference is the greatest anesthetic ever invented. Those who adopt it feel less pain, but also less joy, less connection, and less humanity. The ancient rule suggests that suffering is not a flaw in goodness, but its shadow. Another reason good people suffer more is that they expect the world to be fair. This expectation is itself a moral act. Cynical people assume cruelty and are rarely disappointed. Good people hope for decency and are often wounded when it fails to appear. The ancients warned against confusing moral hope with moral entitlement. The world does not owe goodness a reward. Goodness is chosen for its own sake, not for the comfort it provides. This is perhaps the hardest lesson embedded in the ancient rule. Many people are kind with an unconscious expectation that kindness will protect them. When it does not, they feel betrayed by life itself. Ancient wisdom sought to free people from this illusion. It taught that goodness is not a transaction. It is a stance toward existence. The rule also explains why evil can appear to prosper. Those who lack conscience experience fewer internal conflicts. They are not haunted by guilt. They do not replay their mistakes at night. Their emotional lives are simpler, though emptier. Ancient texts repeatedly warn against envying such people. Their peace is shallow, built on blindness rather than harmony. Good people suffer more because they remember. Memory is another form of awareness. They remember promises broken, kindness not returned, injustices ignored. Forgetfulness protects the soul from pain, but memory preserves truth. Ancient cultures valued remembrance not because it was pleasant, but because it was necessary. This rule also reveals why societies often persecute their best members. Truth-tellers disturb comfort. Moral individuals expose hypocrisy. Compassionate people highlight cruelty by contrast. The suffering of good people is not accidental. It is systemic. Societies built on convenience and power instinctively resist those who embody conscience. Yet the ancients did not present this rule to discourage goodness. They presented it to prepare people for reality. They believed that understanding suffering makes it bearable. A good person who expects suffering is less likely to be destroyed by it. Awareness becomes armor, not against pain, but against despair. There is a quiet dignity in this ancient view. It does not promise happiness as a reward for goodness. It promises meaning. It suggests that suffering endured with integrity has a different quality than suffering endured without it. Pain with purpose does not break the soul in the same way. The ancient rule also carries a warning. Good people must learn boundaries. Compassion without wisdom leads to self-destruction. The ancients emphasized balance. Even the Buddha taught the middle way. Stoics taught emotional discipline. Religious traditions emphasized prayer, reflection, and community. Suffering was acknowledged, but it was not meant to consume the self entirely. In a modern world obsessed with comfort, this ancient rule feels uncomfortable and even offensive. We are taught that goodness should be rewarded, that life should be fair, that pain indicates failure. Ancient wisdom challenges this narrative. It says that pain often indicates depth, that suffering can be evidence of alignment with truth rather than deviation from it. This does not mean suffering should be glorified. The ancients did not seek pain. They sought clarity. Suffering was a consequence, not a goal. When suffering becomes meaningless, it must be resisted. When it emerges from integrity, it must be endured. Ultimately, this ancient rule explains not only why good people suffer more, but why goodness still matters despite the suffering. If goodness were easy, it would be cheap. If compassion were painless, it would require no courage. The fact that goodness hurts is precisely what gives it value. The world does not change because of those who feel nothing. It changes because of those who feel deeply and refuse to turn away. Every moral advance in history came from people who suffered for seeing what others refused to see. Their suffering was not wasted. It became the seed of transformation. So when you notice that good people seem burdened, tired, or wounded, remember this ancient rule. Their pain is not proof of weakness. It is proof of awareness. It is the cost of remaining human in an often inhumane world. And while suffering may mark their path, it does not define their worth. Their willingness to carry it does. In the end, the ancient rule leaves us with a difficult choice. We can choose numbness and comfort or awareness and pain. We can protect ourselves by shrinking our hearts, or we can risk suffering by keeping them open. The ancients knew there was no third option. To live deeply is to suffer deeply. To live shallowly is to avoid pain but also meaning. And perhaps that is why, despite everything, goodness endures. Because even when it suffers, it remains the only path that allows a person to look at their life and know it was lived truthfully.